Yes! I was so excited. I had just achieved the dream I had been thinking of for 3 years. Have you ever achieved a dream? The big dream that I had set out to achieve was I wanted to move from the world of inside sales, working in a call center for 3 years, wearing a headset every day, to the world of direct sales. And I finally got my lucky break. It was the summer of 1997, and I had just accepted a role with a company to sell payroll and tax services in my hometown. I remember thinking what it would be like. I would get to go on appointments, take my clients out to lunch. I knew I'd make great money and have a lot of success. I was so excited to get started. And I had no idea about the many lessons I was about to learn on that journey, and sometimes a wild ride. I remember going away to training in Parsippany, New Jersey, making some really great friends and learning all of the fundamentals of selling. And then coming back to my home office and getting ready to go out into the field. I remember walking into the office wearing my navy blue suit, my nails perfectly manicured, my hair looked very professional, and I walked in to meet the director of sales. As I did, she handed me a stack of computer paper. You know, the kind from the 90s with the green and white lines on it and all the hole punches along the side? And she said, "Here, these are all the businesses in your territory. Start making some phone calls." Phone calls, I thought to myself. I mean, where I used to work, everybody called me. You mean I've got to make phone calls? I was shocked and I was disillusioned. I couldn't believe it. I found out that the position I had just accepted would be 100% cold calling and no leads whatsoever. In other words, for those of you that are not in sales, what it meant is that I would be on a daily mission to contact businesses, and that was through phone calls as well as stopping into their offices. Every Monday morning, we would meet for this meeting that was called roll call. At that meeting, we would all go around the table and we would talk about how many calls we had made the last week, how many appointments we had made, how many sales we had made, and also how many referrals we made. And then I remember that first lesson that I learned in the sales training. If it was to be, it was up to me. I knew that activity equals results, and I learned very quickly that that was the way I would work on a daily basis. And then the other lesson I learned quickly was accountability. Because accountability is what we do when nobody else is watching. And I got put to the test one afternoon with accountability. It was a Friday afternoon at about 4 o'clock, and I pulled up in front of this beat-up office building in a not-so-great part of town, and I knew I needed to make my quota for the week. I didn't have enough appointments on my schedule. I remember sitting there in my car and looking out into the distance, and that little voice of self-sabotage started talking to me, and it said, "Don't go in there. They don't want to buy anything from you. It's happy hour time. Why don't you just go home and call it a day?" And then the other voice in my head reminded me of my accountability. I took a deep breath, and I slowly got out of my car as I grabbed my portfolio and I walked into the office. As I walked into the office, I met the receptionist up front. And I said my famous line, "Hi, my name's Amy. I would like to talk to the person in your office that manages your payroll and your tax filing." She put a little smile on her face and she said, "Okay, I'll go get the office manager." as I stood there, that little voice of self-sabotage came back in again, and it said, here we go. You're going to get thrown out of the office, and then they're going to call your company and complain about you. But I stopped, and I took another deep breath, and I kept a smile on my face. And as I did, the office manager came to the front of the office, and she extended her hand out to me and introduced herself. And she said, I'm so glad you came in today. I was just about to call your company. The company that's been doing our payroll checks went out of business this week, and our employees didn't get their checks this morning. Is there any way you can help us? Of course, I said, I can help you. I couldn't believe what I just heard. I went out to my car quickly. I grabbed a contract. She signed it on the spot. Wow. That day, I solved a problem, I made a new customer, and I made a sale. But I learned an even bigger lesson. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And the next lesson I learned is I will never listen to that voice of self-sabotage ever again. And I know it will always be there, but I'm not going to allow that to interfere with my actions. That first year of sales was probably, to this day, one of the most difficult years of my entire life as I look back. I remember midway through the year, stressed out, I was gaining weight, my whole face was breaking out. And I remember that voice coming back again saying, you know what, why don't you just quit? But then this new voice came into my head, and it was called the voice of empowerment, and it said, don't quit. Stay with it for at least a year, learn how to sell, and you will go to other places. And that's exactly what I did. The year ended very strong for me. I made over 100% of my quota. I made it into the President's Club, and I also got my picture in the Sales Performers magazine for that company. But the bigger lesson that came out of that experience for me was this. It got me to see the world differently. What I learned from that experience is that sometimes our own worst enemy can be the thoughts and the mindset that we have. As I move forward, I'm glad I didn't quit that job because it led to 15 more years in medical sales, corporate sales training, and then it also inspired me to start the business that I have today. Because I know my true passion is to uplift humanity and to do that through sales as well as helping people be the best version of themselves. What happened next, though, is I had this other awakening moment. I realized something was missing. Of every one of those companies I had worked for, in every sales training program, and even when I was the sales trainer in front of the room, there was one thing we never talked about. We always talked about the skill sets, the doing, and the tactics. But the one thing we never talked about was our mindset, the being. And from that, I began to get very curious. I began to immerse myself. I read books, I went to seminars, I even joined Toastmasters and stayed there for 14 years because I figured out something. One of the most important parts of sales success is sales confidence, and I knew I wanted to master that. From that moment forward, I found there was a big gap in the marketplace, and I created something that I call the Sales Confidence Code. Because playing two games that we play, the inner game of mindset and then the outer game of tactics, when we combine both of these two games together, we will achieve excellence. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to share with you these 5 tips that you can implement immediately in your sales, your business, and your life to take your results to the next level. And there's a little quick acronym called HABIT, because habits are really what this is all about. H means have a dream, have a goal. Goals push us, they inspire us, they give us something to look forward to. A stands for attitude, activity, and accountability. What are you doing on a daily basis to get your mind in the right place for the day? As Zig Ziglar, one of the most famous sales trainers of all, said, people buy from whom they like and who they trust. As far as activity, sales is not a spectator sport. And accountability, when things aren't going right, do you blame the competition? Do you blame something else? Why not look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself 2 questions? What am I doing great that I can repeat? And what am I not doing so well that maybe I need to make a change? B stands for be courageous, be confident. Courage and confidence means I am going to act in spite of my emotions. And I is I choose to be in service. If you think about this for a minute, sales really is 90% service and about 10% selling, because we do a lot of the work before we make the sale, and after we make the sale, we're doing a lot of client service. That's the most important part. And last but not least, T stands for the work I do is the work I love. One of my favorite words is enthusiasm. The last 4 letters are I am sold myself. And I confess to all of you, I stayed in that payroll job for 1 year because I found out I wasn't really enthusiastic about accounting, payroll, and tax services. But I was very enthusiastic about saving lives. And that was the reason I decided to go into healthcare sales. In closing, remember, the only thing that is going to ever get in the way of your success is right up here, and it's thought habits. Our thought habits either support our success or they sabotage our success. And throughout that journey, as I look back today, I think as much as I immersed myself in the personal and professional development, what I really came to find out is that it was really all about a journey of being the best version of myself. If you're not achieving the results you want in your sales and your business, I invite you to implement the Sales Confidence Code today. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.